Now it's time for the best of your questions on this Thursday edition of PFT PM, and I'm only going to answer the best because I have a feeling we've already gone on for nearly an hour here. Okay. PFT PM Posse is your cell service, currently down too. If today was your regularly scheduled day to leave the house and run errands and your cell service is down, would you postpone your errand day? My cell service isn't down. If my cell service was not working, I probably wouldn't leave the house. Think of the fact that as a species we survived for thousands of years without this thing that we no longer can survive without for more than a few seconds. My wife misplaces her phone around the house all the time. I never do because I feel like I have to have it in my hand or in my field of vision wherever I am. And see, I got the PFT sticker on the back. This thing has been a lifesaver. The PFT sticker. Do I have it upside down? I do. Whoop. Here we go. The PFT sticker is great because when you put the phone face down, it tends to blend in with the scenery. It's hard to find it. That sticker sticks out like a sore thumb. So I always know where my phone is. I don't think I would leave my hand or my home without my cell phone in my hand. All right. PFT PM Posse, I was rewatching the Bill Belichick of Football Life, and he said, I don't want to be like Marv Levy and still be coaching in my 70s, yet he's 71 and taking at least 1 year off before resuming his coaching career all over again with a brand new team. I think it's very easy to say, I don't want to coach when I'm 70, and then you get to 70 and you're like, what the hell am I going to do? It's all he's done for 50 years. Stats. Grier, remember Stats? Used to produce PFT Live. His mother says 80 and out. She wants to get to 80 and then she's happy to die. And you know what? I kind of like that thought too. I really don't want to get like, look at how grump I am now and I'm 22 years away from 80. I'll be a lot worse then. 80 and out. Sounds good. Sounds good at 58. I don't know how it's going to sound at 79 and 364 days. So, yeah. It's easy to write that check, number one, when you never really do have to cash it. And number two, you're going to feel differently when you get to that age that at the time you're saying it seems incomprehensible. But the reality is we're all going to get to that age if we're lucky. Best food you ate in Vegas? That's the last question today posed by our good friend Bobby, a.k.a. PFT PM Posse. There was a place we went to a couple of nights. Went Monday night and then decided to go back Thursday night. Took the PFT writers there. All four. Now, the steaks were really good, but they had a really good pork belly appetizer. It had an oyster on it, of all things. But the pork belly was incredible. And they also had these little mini lobster rolls that were really good. So a couple of really good appetizers. I also had a great New York strip at the hotel that we stayed at for the weekend. We were at Mandalay Bay all week long. We moved to a different hotel at the end of the week where there was no casino. It smelled like heaven inside. We decided to just chill on Saturday night. We got room service. I got a New York strip that was pre-cut. Like Mom came in and cut it all up for me, but it was just sliced perfectly. It was so friggin' good. It was, I'm just getting hungry thinking about that. All right, Patrick Mullen, more important questions. The Dolphins are $52 million over the cap and went all in with an F them picks mode to ingloriously get knocked out of the playoffs in round one. If they stagnate or regress this year, are the GM, Chris Grier, and head coach Mike McDaniel on the hot seat? Well, the one thing we never know about the hot seat is the temperament of the person who controls the flame. What's the owner going to do? And one of the problems with being competitive but not a high-end contender is you may get an owner who thinks, man, I could do better. We have flaws that aren't being addressed. We have a coach who's taking us to solid regular season, playoff contention. We get in and we go one and out. Now, Tyreek Hill has already said no excuses this year. 2022, it was Tua's hurt. 2023, it was we stepped into the open-air meat freezer in Kansas City. No excuses this year, but there very well could be some other excuse. But the reality is, whatever the other excuse is, it can't be an excuse. They have to find a way through it. And that's really the question. How many years of, hey, we had a great regular season and we lost in the wild card round of the playoffs will be too many years for the liking of owner Stephen Ross, who is getting into his 80s. And at some point, Many of these owners are inclined, I think, to approach things the way Leon Hess once did. Remember when Leon Hess fired, I think it was Pete Carroll? Leon Hess knew he only had so many spins left around the globe, or around the sun, the globe around the sun. I don't know. Something like that. I'm no astronomy expert, but the world is round. I'll at least agree to that, which for some reason is at times in debate. But as you're getting closer and closer to the end, sometimes you're willing to do desperate things. And if Stephen Ross just decides, I really like this guy, Mike McDaniel, and he's got a quirky personality, he's very authentic, but he's just not getting us to where we need to be, that's for the owner to decide. Remember, everybody in the organization can be fired except the owner. If anybody were to be fired in Miami over the past 10 years who hasn't been, it would be the owner. But sorry, Dolphins fans, you're stuck with the guy who refuses. Dan Marino told us this 2 weeks ago. Stephen Ross refuses to go back to the uniforms that everybody wants. Everybody in the world could want the throwback uniforms, as long as the owner wants the ones that he designed, or at least were designed on his watch. Those stay. As long as he wants the coach in place, the coach stays. The moment he wants to make a change, the change is made, regardless of what anyone else thinks. Donald Kokersberger. Who would you rather have as your quarterback, Fran Tarkenton or Eli Manning? Both played for the Giants, by the way, and both were not originally drafted by the Giants. Eli originally drafted by the Chargers and traded the Giants that same day. Tarkenton drafted by and played for the Vikings for several years before he had enough of Norm Van Brocklin, even though Van Brocklin was fired and was traded to the New York Giants. Giants later traded him back. I'd take Fran. I don't think Fran was the reason why the Vikings never won a Super Bowl. Now, was Eli Manning the reason why the Giants won two? He may not have been the reason they got there, but he has two of the greatest plays we've ever seen in Super Bowl history. The helmet catch by David Tyree, and the throw to Mario Manningham along the sideline. Devin McCourty talked about that a couple of weeks ago. That throw that kept the drive going that ended up winning the game for the Giants. Or I got to go back and look at the box score. It was a key throw in a key moment. And that was like a moment that you took notice of the reality that the Giants were going to win that game. So I'd still take Fran Tarkenton, in large part because I was a huge Fran Tarkenton fan when I was a kid. Sam Eichenlaub, a.k.a. Florio's paperclip. How often do teams call on superstar or untouchable players that aren't publicly known to be available for trade? I remember a few years back, Washington was rumored to offer something like 5 first-round picks for Mahomes. Can you recall any rumors like that from the past or present? Let's get it straight what the Commanders did. The Commanders feel like they never got a fair chance to trade for Matthew Stafford, and for good reason. They didn't get a fair chance to trade for Matthew Stafford because it was an inside job between the Lions and the Rams, and that's fine. That's fine. There's no requirement if you're going to trade somebody that call every team and say, give me your best offer. The Rams wanted to unload Jared Goff's contract. So they saw an opportunity with a GM who had just left the Rams to become the general manager of the Lions. They saw an opportunity to do a swap, Stafford for Goff, and you can tuck a first-round pick in there to get Goff's contract off the books without it being obvious. If they would have traded Stafford anywhere else, Detroit would have done it. The Rams would have had to do a Brock Osweiler-type deal where they give somebody a first-round pick to take Jared Goff's contract. It just would have been embarrassing. It would have been a bad look. It worked out perfectly for the Rams and Lions. So the Commanders didn't get a shot. So the next year, what they did was they called every team. They wanted there to be no doubt. We've called every team in search of a potential quarterback, including the Chiefs, and people drag them for it. It's like, hey, if you want to be able to say to yourself and everyone else, we tried everything we could to address our quarterback position, that's the way you do it. So I don't think they ever offered 5 first-round picks. It was just they called every team, including the Chiefs, to see if their starter was available. And I understand. I said this recently about the report from Albert Grier of SI.com that a couple of teams talked to the Bears about Justin Fields at the Senior Bowl. That's what teams do. That's what you do. You constantly have these conversations. The players on a team, on any team, are just interchangeable parts in a broader football machine, and they're inevitably going to be removed and replaced with other parts. And there's always a market potentially for those parts, or at least there's a curiosity as to what the market would be for those parts. You're not doing your job as a general manager if you're not constantly in contact with other general managers talking about what it would take. Hey, so what do you think about this guy? What do you know? And you have these conversations, even if it never goes anywhere, because you don't want to miss the opportunity. It's like looking for a house. Sometimes you get lucky, like we did with the house I'm sitting in now. We found out that the house might be available before it was on the market. So we were able to do a deal to buy the house without it being on the market, without having to worry about the real estate commissions, without having to worry about anybody else trying to buy it and getting into a bidding war. We were able to swoop in and do the deal before it was widely known. We got lucky. You make your luck as an NFL executive by being plugged into the network to know when these opportunities are going to arise, when you're going to be able to buy a house before it goes on the market. That's really what they're trying to do. That's why they're having these conversations. You want to be aware of that opportunity to buy a house before the house is on the market, because you got a chance to do a better deal if you have a motivated seller and you're ready to move. And it's easy and it's simple and it's quick. That's why these conversations happen all the time. NFL leads. Now that the season is over, I am rewatching The Sopranos as it is the greatest show ever created. If you could have played a character on the show, and if you were imbued with acting skills somewhat north of Gronk, it's a very low bar, who would you play? I can see you as a mean Richie Aprile or Phil Leotardo. That's a great question, and I say that not just to buy time because I really don't know the answer. I really don't know. I would have wanted my own character. I would have wanted to create my own story. I would have wanted to find a way to fit into the overall experience and arc of Tony Soprano. I would have wanted to be the guy in the members-only jacket that puts the bullet in his head after the screen goes dark. I don't know. All right, good question, though. And I haven't watched it in a long time. I don't know that it's the greatest show ever. Maybe it's the greatest of its genre, but I don't know. I still like Seinfeld, and I still watch Seinfeld all the time. Speaking of TV, the real Swole Pez. I might have gotten that wrong. I'm doing the best I can. Just finished Better Call Saul. I remember you talking about watching the finale years ago. Based on your past career as a lawyer, how close is the show to the real thing on the lawyer's side? I don't recall while watching it ever being frustrated that any of the dialogue or the storylines were unrealistic. A lot of the stuff that Kim does when she's working for HHM, reviewing documents deep into the night, I've lived that. That is part of it. Some of the office politics were pitch perfect. Now they've created very unique and memorable characters that get thrust into these otherwise ordinary situations. But I never recall anything about it seeming incorrect. It's over the top. It's farcical at times, the way that Saul Goodman, a.k.a. Jimmy McGill, operated. But a lot of the stuff you can tell, and I don't know anything about Vince Gilligan's background, but somebody involved in the process of writing that show had practiced law and had a knack for making sure that it was all kind of pitch perfect, even if it involved storylines and characters who were way over the top. All right. I probably need to wrap this up. I'm just looking for something else. One more to wrap up with. Let's see. Rigor mortis. I was in awe watching Sims, Peter King, and you talking to me about football from the Super Bowl, and it made me think of Mount Rushmore. I have been reading King since I was a kid in the 80s. Who would you add to round out the top 4 alive or dead? I was thinking Mad Dog. Look, I'd really need to think about that. Mount Rushmore of like NFL coverage all time. I think it all depends upon your own personal framework, the people that you read, the people that you were influenced by, the people that you grew up waiting to hear whatever they said next. For me, it starts with Brent Musburger. If you haven't seen You Are Looking Live, the documentary that premiered on Super Bowl Sunday, it's been on CBS Sports Network a couple of times. I've seen it. It's great. Brent Musburger was the first person who kind of took my hand and carried me through what it meant to be a pro football fan. So I think it's going to vary based upon what your own individual experiences are and what you read, what you consumed, what influenced you, especially in your formative years as a football fan. Good Lord. I'm really not looking for another question that becomes a recurring theme, but Logan Mapes says, would you rather find $5 on the ground or $100 in a public toilet? Now, at the risk of being graphic, and this will be the last question, and I'm trying not to spoil my appetite for lunch, I would need to know more about the public toilet. I would need more information about the contents and other things of the public toilet. The placement of the $100 bill. There's a lot of areas on a public toilet. So I don't know without more information as to how I would go about retrieving the $100. Andy Dufresne went through 500 yards of the foulest smelling shit to break out of prison. I don't know for $100 how much of it I want to stick my hand through, frankly. And on that happy note, enjoy your lunch or your dinner or your breakfast. Thanks again to our guest today and Matthew Hamachek of the Dynasty. And we're going to sign off. Maybe we'll do one tomorrow to wrap up the week. Maybe we won't. Either way, Monday, PFT Live returns. Tuesday, we're in Indianapolis. Wednesday, we're in Indianapolis. Thursday, we're in Indianapolis. And next Friday, we also will be there talking to coaches, general managers, and prospects as the 2024 offseason begins to hit overdrive. It's coming next week. Thanks again for some of your time. Check us out around the clock at ProFootballTalk.com, and see you again tomorrow. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.